when we reviewed back to our preliminary task, it was such a good feeling, realising how far we have come in such a short time between the production of our preliminary task and our final film opening. Before, we was using basic standard shots and editing skills, and in our final film opening we have produced a high quality film opening that conforms to our thriller genre codes and conventions. As a group, our mise-en-scene skills have improved tremendously. In our preliminary task, we didn't really focus on mise-en-scene. All we focused on was getting different angle shots and putting those together. However, in our final task, we use all angle shots, all elements of mise-en-scene, including costumes, props, settings, etc. We was able to improve from the large amount of research that we took out on the thriller genre and film openings. Much analysis from different films gave us lots of ideas and inspiration to perform in our film. In our preliminary task, we stuck to quite basic angled shots. We used the 360-degree rule, worm's eye view, reverse shot, close-up shot. The shots that we didn't manage to use was the match-on action shot and reverse shot, which was the basic shots that we could have put, Actually, no, we did use it. Yeah, excuse that. We did actually, in our preliminary task, use match-on action, I think, when we were opening the door. So, yeah, we did. However, all the shots were still quite bland, basic, and we didn't focus on effects, sound, nothing like that. We just focused on the shots of the different angle shots that we could do. So when filming our final film opening, we used a much wider range of different shots we found out about during research. This included shots such as extreme close-up, wide shot, over-the-shoulder shot, point-of-view shot, extreme close-up, and hundreds of more. Well, not hundreds, but quite a few. Our preliminary task was a great starter for us, as it gave us the opportunity to increase our skills later on in our film opening. So yeah, that was a really good way for us to start somewhere and then progress. In our preliminary task, we used my MacBook and used the editing software iMovie. This is really basic transitions, which when editing our preliminary task we believed was very advanced and effective. So obviously when we upgraded to Final Cut Pro, this was actually much more advanced, as well as much easier to use. And it also allowed us to layer the film music, and voiceover easily, as the overlay effects were much easier to use than on iMovie. It's crazy. So yeah, and moving on to the sound in our preliminary task, we didn't use any soundtrack or anything in our preliminary task apart from the diegetic sound of the dialogue in the that we were speaking in our preliminary task. We were so focused on the different shots we needed to use, so we didn't research any soundtracks or dialogue. This again highlights our improvements from our preliminary task to our final opening, as in our final film opening. We was able to add 2 voiceovers and add effects on them, add a soundtrack and add the bleeping sound at the end of the opening. So yeah, we improved massively, from sound in our preliminary task to in our final product. In our preliminary task, there was a small amount of dialogue which we used to tell a short story. However, the dialogue, it does use hermeneutics code, as it created a slight mystery for the audience, as they didn't know what the characters were talking about. It was created a mysterious feeling for them, for the audience, as they didn't know what the characters meant by this dialogue, showing it had a background story. So yeah, the audience was unknown to know what that was. I suppose that's quite a good idea. However, it was still very basic and uninteresting for the audience. I think they would have just turned away straight away. Furthermore, in our final film, we researched into different dialogues and decided to spend a lot more time on the creation of it using mise-en-scene, sound and editing skills. So yeah, we wanted to know what sounds good, what looks good, and everything. Ultimately, in our preliminary task, we only used one location, which was our school hallway, and then the small office just off of the hallway. This is again because we failed to take much research into different locations. Nevertheless, in our final film, we was able to experiment with many different locations in order to find the best one for our final film opening, which we then went on to use in the car and the forest for. So yeah, we improved a lot in that, really. So this demonstrated our understanding of different locations and how to shoot in different locations, focusing on different terms of lighting and camera work. So yeah, to conclude, I think it is clearly identifiable how much progress our group made in the relatively short space between our preliminary task and final film opening. I mean, it was only like a couple of months, not even that, maybe a month and a half. So there is even a huge contrast between our first draft film opening and our final one. That's even a huge difference. I think it was the basicness of our preliminary task when we realised we was missing so many different codes and conventions of a thriller that motivated us to take the time to carry out research and produce a much higher standard product. We worked immensely well as a group. We all had our designated roles, which allowed us to produce a really good final product.